Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we'll go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Bedford Savant Apartments in Brooklyn, New York, to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the Uncanny Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance Assemble.
Assemble.
Volume 83. And we should call this, technically, it's not the episode before the big movie event, but it's our last kind of quote unquote normal episode, so it's close.
That's right. A week from now is going to be a glorious time.
All the rumors, everything has been leading to this, but we have a lot to talk about tonight. The week was it gave us a lot of good Marvel content to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we're texting each other on Monday. Okay, another one. Okay, another one. Holy cow. Okay, well, we thought we had the show figured out, a couple things, and it's like, all right, that's our show. We're locked, right? Something big's gonna have to happen, and then something big happened. Okay, we're locked, and then something big happened.
It's like all right. Saturday, we thought Sunday, another big thing. Oh God, it was like Monday. It was like it's just Monday.
What a great problem to have, though.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, woe is us. We have too much to talk about.
Too much content. Again, we're definitely not complaining. It's just more of we did not expect this amount of content to drop. In fact, if you don't know, stick around post credits. We do something every week. That's how much news we have. We have to kick something to post credits for a discussion.
Yeah.
So, but since we have so much to talk about, let us get these plugs out of the way. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network with 8 shows. On Mondays, we got my show, World's Finest True Believers. I dropped a new episode this week. Greg from our buddy Greg from Super Civil Servants podcast joined me again, and the topic of discussion was Doomsday Clock. So make sure to check that out. Run by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, looking at the Watchmen come to the DC universe. So come check that out. It was a great discussion. I want to thank Greg for coming back on again. And that show alternates bi-weekly with Ranger Alliance, so they will have a new episode next week. DC Alliance is on Tuesday, superhero discussions on Wednesday, Star Wars Alliance on Thursdays. This show is on Fridays. A Walk Through the Multiverse is airing Saturdays bi-weekly, and Slice of Film on Sundays bi-weekly. DC Alliance goes live on Monday nights, and Star Wars Alliance goes DC Alliance on Monday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Star Wars Alliance at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this show Thursday nights at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time, all on the Geekverse podcast YouTube channel. So make sure you check those out if you want to join us live. We appreciate that. And all 3 of those shows have their separate solo feeds. So make sure to check those out. Subscribe at that point, in addition to the GUA main feed. And we do have a Patreon. So if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we got 2 tiers. Our $1 tier is our tip jar to say, hey, think we're doing a good job. We appreciate it. And then our $5 tier, which gives you ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and our Patreon exclusive shows. So we want to thank our patrons. We can't do this without your support. And then if you can't join us on Patreon, we totally understand. But if you can take 30 to 90 seconds and rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed and the GUA feed on Apple Podcasts, or whichever podcatcher of choice may be, we greatly appreciate that. And then to plug, as always, our official sponsor, organicpricebooks.com, for all your omnibus, collected edition, and hardcover needs. JP and the crew at the OPB have got it going on. All the best stuff, all immaculate packaging, ships all around the world. Check them out at that point and use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. It lets them know that you're a fan of our show and support them at that point. I'm actually, if you look, OPB does have, Organic Price Books has their own YouTube channel, and started joining the crew for what JP calls late night and chill with OPB. So we just constantly talk collected editions, random topics about comics, and it's a fun time. And if you happen to be in the chat, there are opportunities to win gift cards to OPB. In fact, next Wednesday, they'll be celebrating 1,000 subscribers to their YouTube channel. And so JP will be giving away 10, I think, $100 gift cards to OPB. So be
Wow.
in the chat to check that out to celebrate 1,000 subscribers. So
that's awesome. When
Yeah.
tell me again when I'm not gonna enter, but tell me again when it airs. Or like when you guys record it.
It's either 9 p.m. Central Standard Time has been the kind of consistent on Wednesdays. So I think he's
watch that next week.
Yep. So it'll have to be after this show because we'll get into that in a little bit. But so again, thank you, Organic Price Books, for sponsoring the show. And so yeah, programming notes. So next week, Brent, our final Marvel movie of 2021. It is finally here, Spider-Man No Way Home. And we've got a Disney Plus show at the same time. So as if you have been with this show for a while, when we do this, we have 2 episodes. So what's going to happen next week is what we've always done in this situation. We will record our show Wednesday, not live. So unfortunately for our live viewers, you won't be able to join us. I'm very sorry about that. But it'll cover episode 5 of Hawkeye and then continuing our discussion of Hawkeye and Comic Book Club. No news will be discussed unless it's really massive, which at this point, I don't know what more could happen at that point.
I mean, it would have to be both massive and not related to like Spider-Man, because we're not going to be looking at anything Spider-Man at that point next week.
No. So, but again, that'll be just the focus of the show. That will drop on Friday morning, as usual, in your feeds. And then on Friday night, going live on the Geekverse YouTube channel at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time, we will have our finally Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler review. Brent and I will be joined by a number of hosts and co-hosts from Geek Ultimate Alliance and Geekverse. So Travis Hines, Clay, Joe, and making his debut appearance on a Marvel Alliance movie review, Mr. Travis Snell will be making his debut on this one. So he will be doing double duty at that point, having to do a Geekverse review and a Marvel Alliance review.
Well, I'm glad he's joining us. It felt like if there was one review, I've never gotten to do a review with him. I would like to do that. And 2, if we were gonna do one, what better movie than where the originals are coming back to play than having our original host of this show joining us again.
After, as he deemed it, you did a hostile takeover of the show.
That's nonsense, but that's just, I mean, he was probably just hungry when he said that. You know how he gets.
That's true. It might have been at that point. He needs to have that. So again, quick review. Wednesday, we record at that point, and for Hawkeye, that will drop Friday. We record Friday night live for our No Way Home review. That will drop the next day, Saturday morning, in all the feeds. So we're very excited. Hopefully, we're going to have a lot to talk about. I guarantee you that. So MJ in the chat saying next week, we fans are feasting with No Way Home, Hawkeye episode 5, and Witcher season 2.
Starts,
yes. Yep. So a lot of good stuff next week. It's just going to be, like you said, eating's good for us geeks.
Yeah, I was talking about that with my coworker today, and I was like, man, I remember like just being blown away at having a Black Widow and Loki, and then we had a What If and a Shang-Chi, and for me those were in the same day actually because of seeing that advanced screening, and then it's like now Spider-Man and Hawkeye, and it just feels like it somehow just gets bigger and bigger.
Yep, and again, we're not going to complain about all the good content we've got coming and how this year has gone, considering we didn't know how much we were going to get at the start of 2021. We were just thankful for what we could get.
It feels like we're getting like 2-3 years worth of content in this 1 year, so I'm not upset at all.
Yep. All right, so let us go into our main topic, as always, breaking down Hawkeye episode 4, Partners. Am I right? So non-spoiler thoughts, Brent. What did you think about this episode?
I really, really enjoyed it. A little bit slower the episode than last week, let's say, but I really liked it. I think last week still takes the crown as my favorite, but this had some great character moments, and just it gave you a moment for some fun, for some levity, for a little relaxing maybe before things got tense again. And this show just continues to impress me every week. Hawkeye was never on my list of like most anticipated shows. And if I'm being honest, like neither was Loki. So I shouldn't be surprised with how much I ended up enjoying Loki. And then of course they could do it again with Hawkeye. And they're 4 for 4 in my book at this point throughout the season.
Yeah, it was definitely, as I kind of texted you after I saw the episode, this felt like we've got 2 episodes left. This felt like the episode we're moving the pieces on the board for the finale. So I mean, I know I've heard some complaints from people like this is their lowest episode at that point, in comparison to last episode. Yeah, last episode 3 still takes the win in my book for right now, the best episode. But I liked what we continue to see, especially the continuing development of Kate and Clint in their partnership, as it were.
So good.
They really do a good job playing off each other, and the hints we're getting about what is going on and what could possibly, because again, just when we think we figured it out, there's more wrinkles into this, and there's more ideas, and there's, as you've warned us before, don't let your speculation become your expectation. And that's kind of very hard with the news this week of not letting it take over.
We're gonna have a talk about that in Fact or Fiction, actually. But my wife told me after this episode, she's like, I really liked it, but this did feel a little like a budget saving episode. It wasn't technically a bottle episode, but it was lighter on the action, lighter on the special effects, and heavy on the dialogue. But when you do a good job with it, it can still be a super compelling episode. And frankly, I would not. These kind of episodes let me enjoy the action ones more. The action ones let me enjoy these more. You need, balance. It's got to be a balance. And this show, for me anyway, is there. So again, while it's not my favorite episode of this week, there were so many moments that I absolutely loved. So we should probably get into them.
Yeah, let's get into the spoilers. So again, if you haven't watched it, stop. If you want to hear the rest of the news, fast forward and then come back to this at this point. But so I want to go actually to the opening, the title credit at that point. We get the arrows hitting the A. This has been done in episode 2, and they did it in episode 2 as well, and I believe not episode 3. And the only thing I could come back to was because the episode intro was mainly focused on Maya Echo, that they kind of didn't do that. So I figure we get those 2 arrows when we get more of a Clint Kate episode.
Well, the episode one, the beginning was a flashback to Kate. Episode 3 was the flashback to Maya. Maybe episode 5 will be a flashback to, we're in spoilers now, right?
Yes,
maybe something to Yelena, since we know she has now entered the board. I don't know. Interesting. I hadn't really put that together. So I don't know. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right.
Yeah, little small thing, but yeah. So the scene, we basically just see, before the title credits, that opens right where Clint is basically held at, sword point at his throat by Jack, and Eleanor walks in and say, "Why is there an Avenger in my apartment?" And then title say Crenson. So we get to transition to everyone at the table, and with Kate and Clint explaining what is going on. And to me, this felt like Kate is with the new boyfriend and introducing them to the family for the first time, and it is awkward as hell.
Yeah, but the family that knew him a little bit. That's a great way to describe it. But they kind of knew who he was. Like, there's an Avenger here. Jack called him Archer, and Kate kind of says, well, no, it's Hawkeye. That's your branding issue again. But at the same time, they still recognized him as an Avenger. So his branding's worked to a point. I did really enjoy it when Jack's just like, hey, by the way, thanks for saving the world. And just randomly. But that was a fun scene. And it was kind of funny to watch how Kate's trying to explain everything. And Clint's just under his breath, almost going against what she says. She's like, I am his partner, not my partner. We are friends. We're not friends. And just throughout that whole sequence. But the big thing that I catch, there's 2 things that I found odd. One, okay, nitpick, but we'll let it go. She's supposed to be the owner and head of the security company. Her laptop was used without her notice, and it took her phone 10 minutes to notify her. And she looked as soon as it lit up and beeps. I'm like, that's some dodgy notification settings you got there, lady. So that was a little odd. But the other thing was just the way that Eleanor was asking Clint to drop the case.
Yeah.
She's like, Kate's not like you. She's not a superhero. She's not made blah, 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 blah. So you're going to drop the case, right? And I'm like, that was a little pushy. You should have been more like, it's not dropping the case. It's just leave Kate out of it. That's what she should have said.
Yeah.
So her saying drop the Kate, to me, it's like red flag. We've already clocked some red flags with her anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is another one.
Yeah, especially, saying I can't lose another person in my family. I can't lose Kate. When she confirms it was her laptop at that point. My thing, and I put this in our chat offline after the episode, just saying that, what if Bishop security is being used by the big guy, Wilson Fisk, to monitor people he needs info or on control? I don't think Eleanor is capable of killing necessarily, but she is capable of calling some people to do her dirty work for her.
Which is really just like one step removed, but she did make a call.
Yep, she did. To a voicemail.
I wonder, there's a couple possibilities. Who do you think she maybe reached out to?
Either someone in the tracksuit mafia or the big guy.
I have one other possibility I would like to put before the panel, if you will. Don't call her Val.
That I've heard some recent rumblings of that too.
And that doesn't necessarily mean Val would pop up, but I would not rule it out. I would not. Mm-hmm. They definitely could have filmed something with her without us knowing about it. And I'm not saying she's the big guy. I'm not saying she's the uncle. She's clearly not. But Val and Yelena are connected, as we saw at the end of Black Widow. And we don't know, is Yelena there only because Val sent her? Because, hey, this is who, I'm going to tell you killed your sister. Or is she there for that and a mission at the same time and kind of a two-bird scenario?
Oh, yeah. No, I've recently, like today, I started hearing more and more like that coming forward. Jumping ahead later at that point, but we'll kind of get back, since it's going to like the laptop. Jack has later confirmed that he is the CEO of Sloan Limited, and the money laundering for the tracksuit mafia might be going, they think that Jack's in on it, but like Jack could still be a patsy in this. This could be going under his nose, and someone else might be using him to do it. Maybe.
I mean, he seems pretty involved. Like the one person was like, "Oh, my boss makes me work every day," or whatever. Like there was a line about that. But he's the CEO of the money launderers for the tracksuits. Maybe he. I still don't think he killed his uncle. I don't think.
No, I don't either.
And so maybe for this scenario, he's innocent of these crimes. But I don't think his hands are clean overall.
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. So Clint is on his way out. He's able to swipe the Ronin sword. And, I thought it was interesting, Eleanor bringing up Natasha being dead. They always got to shove that in his back all the time. I did see a lot of articles, particularly as a result of this episode, said Hawkeye is giving Black Widow the eulogy we never got.
I mean, kind of, I guess. Kind of to a point. I mean, in Avengers Endgame, it felt like that scene was they had a little moment and then there was still work to be done.
Yeah.
And they're now past the point. And Natasha would have been the first person to say, no, we have work to do. We're going to do this. We'll have time for that later. Well, Hawkeye's now at the point where it's later. And that's one of the advantages of the MCU is they can tell a complete story in a movie like Avengers Endgame, but they can still follow up on loose threads.
Yep. And so Clint texts Laura, his wife, to look up some information on Sloan Limited. Eleanor leaves that voicemail. Could be, as we said, Fist, tracksuit, Val. Here's another theory I'll put out to you. What if Armand found out about Kate's mom getting involved in some shady stuff? Because it sounds like he did. And she made a call to Uncle or someone, much like she did at this point. Seems a bit too coincidental. Jack hooked up with her, and she is keeping an eye on him since he's laundering Wilson's money.
Yeah, that is certainly possible. The other side of it is I kind of wondered if he's there to keep an eye on her for some sort of dealings going on. Perhaps Wilson, we keep saying Wilson like it's a done deal. Perhaps the uncle says, views her as a threat of some sort. I don't know.
That's true. We should say uncle, but
as I believe Jack's hands are dirty, just maybe not directly with some of these events. I think Eleanor's are. Like, I
Yes.
would not be surprised to find out if she, at a bare minimum, ordered the hit or the assassination of Armand.
Yeah.
Like, if she's the one who actually said it's a go, that would not surprise me at all to find that out.
Yeah, I agree with that. She may not do the deed, but she'll give the go code for it. Laura does call Clint back and tells him what she's found out, including Nick Jax and the CEO of Limited, the money laundering. She even speaks German to him to avoid letting the kids know that she's talking about it, but they know it's Dad. She asks if anything else went missing at Avengers compound besides the watch and besides the watch and the suit, and he says he doesn't think so. But it seems, based on the conversation, the watch is very important and might have a hidden attribute. And, we've talked about the watch being maybe accessing Tony's stuff, something tied to something very important. It's more than just a watch at that point. And he says something very interesting and very purposeful. Says to Laura, it belonged to someone he used to work with and thought that they have been out of the game for a long time and it could lead to bad things in the wrong hands.
He said that to Kate, not to Laura, just to clarify.
Okay, said that to Kate, not to Laura. Okay.
Do you have an idea of whose watch this is?
I mean, when we've seen it, it doesn't look like a watch for a typical watch that you would see for a female. It looks to be someone. It looks to be someone of a male watch at that point. So
sure,
it could. My guess is Tony. So
I agree with you about the watch appearing to be more likely to be male, like of a male for a man. I don't want to go. I don't know watches. Like, I don't know that watch world, so I don't want to definitively say there's no way a woman would wear that watch. I'm not going to go that far. That's just my indication as well. I think the watch is connected to Laura and Clint themselves, between Laura and Clint, because it's like, to me, maybe Laura gave it to Clint as a gift because there's a transmitter in it that she has the capability of tracking and down to an address, and she was able to pinpoint it that close. Maybe it was something so she could watch and know where he was.
Yeah.
No pun intended on the watch, but just, where in the world is my superhero husband, my secret agent husband? Maybe that's something that he did there.
And he'll consider himself, quote unquote, out of the game for a while at that point. But, it's also interesting. I saw some stories breaking today of a fan theory that's picking up steam that what if Laura was a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, aka could be our official MCU's Mockingbird.
Right. Yeah. I kind of like that idea, her being connected to Shield in some way, or at least the life, right? Maybe not a Shield agent, but the life. Like, she seemed very, very comfortable with, like, when he's just like, can you run this name? Can you find this? Like, she has the capabilities to do these things. And I've heard of the Mockingbird theory, the Shield theory, the Black Widow theory, but probably not a Black Widow, because as far as we know, their children are biological, which she would not have been able to do if she was a Black Widow. But the Mockingbird theory, I think, is great. All in the Game says thoughts on perhaps retconning Laura as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. I'm fine with it. Like, if they did that, I think that's pretty cool. And give her a little bit more. And if that happens, I'm sure some people will be upset because she gave it up to, like, be the stay-at-home mom or whatever. But I don't know. I still think it'd be an interesting story, and you'd kind of hope if there ended up being a season 2 that, if not in this season and the next one, maybe we'd get to see her mix it up a little bit as well.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing that pick up steam. So back at the penthouse, Jack and Eleanor talking to Kate. Jack keeps trying to show he cares, and even it very much looks like Kate even softens up on Jack as he can't say certain things right, dances with her mother. I did kind of give a good chuckle of Kirkland of Geekverse when he says, "Oh, just look, it's kind of fun seeing you grope my mother right in front of me."
Yeah, that I mean, I wouldn't go that far with it. It was I found his singing a little uncomfortable. I was like, you're not that good a singer, man. But it was a nice moment. And the thing is, like, Kate was, like, smiling. Like, she was clearly enjoying seeing the happiness that Eleanor had. And I actually was like, oh, is she going to go back to Clint and say, maybe I was wrong? No, she still seems, with the idea that he's still behind something, but she was just, enjoying a moment of happiness for her mom, who she probably has. I mean, she says, I've never seen you like this. She just probably thinks of her mom as a sad widow. And now she at least gets to see this other moment of her. And of course, they're laughing at him for him mixing up different sayings. And he's like, oh, it is nice to be laughed at by family. And what's better than being around family in the holidays? And that's when Kate, kind of connect some dots, and they cut to Clint like putting ice, like frozen peas or something, whatever it was, on his injuries. And I'm like, oh, what a sad transition that was.
Yeah, because I mean, she has that realization saying, oh yeah, I'm keeping him away from his family at that point. And yet again, this is a scene between these two that it's a lot of character development, a lot of growth, and a lot of realization, especially for Kate realizing who Clint was. And at that point, they talk about, like, says no more trick arrows, only trick heads, and they're in a lockup. Kate says something about the boomerang trick head would be awesome, and Clint says that's a really dumb one, which is the reverse of how it is in the comics.
Yes. Yep. She's like, well, you'd have to dodge.
Exactly. He explains that to hit a double bullseye, you need a wooden arrow. She asked what was his, this is where we get really some heartfelt pull at your heartstrings moments. She asked what was the best shot he made, and he said it was the one I didn't take. And he talks about basically referring to his mission to kill Natalie, Black Widow, and ended up recruiting her. And he has obviously a lot of guilt for Natalie's sacrifice, or excuse me, not Natalie, Natasha's sacrifice. And Kate realizes that at that point he was Ronin. He explains that he was always a weapon, just used in the right hands, and during the blip he just continued what he did. And he also said he was hired by other people too.
Yeah, so at some point he was effectively a mercenary. I love this scene. Like, this scene was probably my favorite of the episode, actually. There's so much in it that was great, from her reaction to the confirmation he's Ronin. Like, they could have done the the teen drama thing and just say, oh my goodness, she freak out on him and run away and everything. No, she just understood. She's like, well, you were at your worst, you were at a low point. Like, it's almost like she immediately forgave him. And I kind of appreciate it. It just felt like a very adult response. While at the same time, we got things like the dry erase that wasn't actually dry erase, so she's trying to map it out. We've got things like the quarter trick where he's teaching her to flip the quarter. And you just, am I crazy for thinking that's coming up again in probably episode 6?
Yeah. I mean, that's taking someone down.
It's so good. So good. The whole scene, you get this heartfelt moment, you get these moments of just joy, of friendship, like the genuine appreciation that Clint tells her when she's like, thank you for doing this. Like, she's like, this isn't the big day, but we're going to celebrate until we get you there.
And again, coffee mug that says Thanos was right.
Indeed.
All right, before we continue on, let's take our first ad break before we kind of wrap up our discussion on this episode of Hawkeye. So again, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to give you that 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. Yeah, I saw Brock in the chat saying, yes, he'd pay good money to see a boomerang arrow.
Wouldn't we all? Kind of hope it comes up still.
Yeah, I think we might, because we did see there was some decorations that had boomerang stuff there. So Katie has a mission, and she's got to get those trick arrows out of the lockup at that point. So he sends her to meet up with the LARPers. We get to see the LARPers, and Grills returns. She meets up one of the LARPers named Wendy Conrad, and Wendy Conrad is actually from the comics. She is tasked with cutting off Clint's arm as a mercenary, so he can't use his bow and arrow. And if we remember What If, Clint also did not have an arm, most likely because of Ultron, but it's a nice little tip of the hat.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, as soon as I didn't recognize her name at first, Officer or whatever. And it's like, oh, this is my bag, and then my wife had bombshell embroidered on it. I'm like, okay, you're somebody. Let me look this up and double check. Yep, okay. Knew it for sure. I'm actually more familiar with like the Ultimate Bombshell from the Ultimate Spider-Man run with Miles. But regardless, nice little tip there. I doubt anything comes of it. But the LARPers are just hilarious. So it's awesome that they joined in. And I love that Kate just kind of was like, yeah, okay, we'll go with this. And we'll get you material for your costumes, and maybe you can make a couple extra costumes.
And they're like, we get new costumes. Yeah. And Clint has his own mission. He ambushes Kazi in his car and basically trying to make a deal with them and smooth things over between them and Echo and just say, you got to get her to stop this. And Clint says he doesn't think that their boss will be too happy with all this extra attention Maya is causing on his vendetta. He also brings up that the boss does not want anyone to know about him. This is very similar, again, if this is going to be Mr. Fisk, Kingpin, to that in that show, Wilson did not allow anyone to say his name, which is why he goes by different monikers, such as possibly Uncle.
Possibly. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Possibly next week.
Possibly next week. Clint reunites with the LARPers, and as you said, talking about making upgraded costumes, which I think we've already seen due to the trailers of those upgraded suits.
Yeah.
So Clint finds out from Laura that the Rolex wasn't destroyed and that it's pinging, and they get the arrows back and they go on a stakeout. And how does that stakeout go?
Well, as he's looking, just like saying, all right, this is the plan. I'm going to, rappel down the building, go in and do the blah. She just walks across the street. I'm like, there is no reason she needed to walk through the middle of traffic. She could have taken a moment to look both ways and cross safely. No, she's just going to walk across and help some old guy up with his groceries.
Yeah, especially when it says, okay, we need to make sure that you have the way out versus the way in, but this is how we're going to do it, because you always have to have that exit strategy. He's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be watching. I'm supposed to be one going in. Well, she found a way in. I did like when she's hearing Clint at that point, and the old man's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm talking to an Avenger. I'm kind of an Avenger now.
Yes, yeah, and her facial expressions in that scene were awesome.
So she breaks into this apartment, finds the watch, and during that time, she sees these kind of strobe lights going off, and she uses the putty arrows, make a return, and they start figuring out that Clint figures out it's an alarm. It's an alarm for someone who is hard of hearing or deaf, which means, it's Maya's apartment.
And they had also found the paper with Clint's family's names on it, his wife, his kids, and their ages. And that's around the time when Clint starts putting it all together. And of course, that's when Maya attacks, seemingly both of them, right? Seemingly Clint thinks he's fighting Maya.
And so he's getting ambushed by someone. Kate, we know, is getting ambushed by Maya. And this is kind of very similar to kind of the tape arc that we just covered in Hawkeye at that point. So we see someone as a fan of the video game, with Sam Fisher, the night vision goggles. He's fighting someone. We don't know who it is at this point. But then, Kate gets away from Maya and tries to go across the way, eventually across to help out Clint. And
how funny was it when she goes up the zip line and it doesn't because she's straight across, so she doesn't have to go the whole way. Oh my gosh, I was cracking up when that happened.
Oh yeah, it just goes at that point, and so now we got all four people across the way fighting at that point. And this is where we start figuring out who this person is. This person uses the red bracelets that have a very interesting red tint to them.
She also did a little pose in the middle of the fight at one point. She kind of rolled on the roof and popped up into a little pose for just a split second, but it was there.
Such a poser. And then at one point, Kate uses she uses one of the flashbang arrows and knocks everyone back. And that's when the mask is taken off. Clint takes off the mask, revealing it's Yelena. She doesn't say anything.
She doesn't. And there's a really cool moment where Kate has her bow aimed at her, and Yelena just shakes her head no. And it's just like, you don't want a piece of this, kid. It's like, don't do it. I expected her to let the arrow go and Yelena to catch it. But no, she's just like, nope, hold back because you don't want this. And then Yelena takes off. And Clint tells her this just got very real, kid. You need to go home. That was a Black Widow assassin. And what I want to know is, I have several questions. Does he, one, know who Yelena is? Does he know her? Does he know of her existence? Did Natasha ever tell him of his existence? I assume so, but we just don't know at this point. Two, what does he even recognize her at this point?
Yeah, and also, you say that you just want a piece of that, but Yelena also knows Kate's also got her in a position where she can take her down. Got some things in the chat all in the game saying, do New Yorkers not bat an eyelid to someone not known as Hawkeye yet walking around with a huge bow and arrow?
No problem.
Nope.
No problem.
Sub on Sanchez. First thing I thought of was Skrull when Clint said Maya was attacking him on the roof. And all in the game, yep, that's the Widow's Bite.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
And Brock saying the zip line had me rolling. Yeah,
absolutely.
It is. I'm just gonna say this is not the thing. This is not the last we're gonna see Yelena. We pretty much
we know that's not the case.
Yeah, we know that's not the case. So we'll be seeing her probably speak next episode.
Yeah, so maybe we'll find out. Does Clint know, or did he just recognize, her weapons and her fighting, and of course the posing as a Black Widow? Maybe. So I want to know the knowledge point at this. Like, maybe they've met. I'm assuming they haven't met before, because otherwise Yelena probably would not think that Clint would have killed Natasha. You got to think we're gonna get like a 3-minute conversation where he explains, Vormir.
Yeah,
there's this red guy, and we had the problem is I lived because she beat me, because she's better than I am. And then Yelena's going to be like, I could totally believe that. Okay, I get it. You didn't kill her.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some conversation to sort this out. But I just like how earnest Clint is. Like, you need to go home right now. This has become even too big that I'm even scared for my own survival of this.
I was thinking about it, and it's like, he doesn't really have that great of a track record against Natasha with the few times we've seen them spar or fight or whatever. And so if he sees someone else who went through the same program that she did, he might feel like she's better than I am right now.
Yeah, especially since he's been maybe quote unquote out of the game for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so that's kind of where the episode ends. And there have been a lot of talk about this infamous episode 5, the penultimate episode. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. The penultimate episodes, when it comes to particularly these shows, have been, in my opinion, the best ones of each one of the live action. I don't know. What If was okay. I wouldn't call it the best one.
I wouldn't say it for What If. And I'm really trying to think of, for WandaVision, yeah, I'm with you on WandaVision. I don't know about Loki or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I think you could certainly make that argument. Penultimate episodes are historically big deals.
Well, Loki, we had the tour of the place where we met the 3 Lokis.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I just really like the stuff with He Who Remains. So
yeah, gotcha.
I don't know, but regardless, this is supposed to be a big one. This is the one that I think it was June was when the reports came out that episode 5 was going to be a really big deal.
It's quote unquote breaking the Twitter.
Yeah, it's now allegedly breaking the Twitter. We're going to find out if Twitter's broken when I get done watching it. I mean, call it what it is. This is the episode that we are allegedly going to see Wilson Fisk. So we will find out. And again, if he's not there, the show didn't technically promise him. He's just going to be the new Mephisto. So we'll find out. We'll find out in less than a week at this point.
But Mr. D'Onofrio loves him some Hawkeye, doesn't he?
He does. He thinks these Marvel shows are a lot of fun. And well, I don't disagree with the man. So I'm hopeful that we will see him next week.
Yep. So all right. So let us transition to some news. And we're gonna start off with what was gonna be our, at that point, probably we got, this is enough to kind of go on. We've got a trailer. Not just any trailer, Brent. In fact, I'm going to change our background because we're talking about what else? We're going into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
So we got a new trailer for what basically until the end, we didn't know the title of it, Into the Spider-Verse 2, which has been officially titled Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Release date to be October 7, 2022.
Part 1. Part one.
That coming at the end of it was like, oh my gosh, did not see that we're getting a two-parter movie with this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the fact that we know they're already making them both, they're both basically making them together. And we've got this in 2022. We'll have part 2 in 2023. We don't know when, but this is scheduled to come out in October. So I'm going to guess the fall of 2023 as well.
So I'm going to queue up the video at that point, the first look or teaser, whatever you want to have you. Again, as if you're watching this, you're not going to hear any sound, and cut that off. And Brenda, I'll have you watch the chat since I can't do both at the same time for this. But yeah, we'll pause at different points, point out some different things, some Easter eggs, and some things I've watched this a number of times just to kind of point out maybe some theories. So meanwhile, in another universe. And we get the music, the Sunflower song, which I love. I freaking love the soundtrack.
I've heard that song a billion times because my 5-year-old loves that song too.
So we kind of leave Miles where he is, but we also see Miles has grown up and a lot of stuff's floating around him.
Yeah, so this is basically recreating the last shot of the first movie. It's just, he is, as you said, grown up. He is noticeably older. This isn't picking up like the very next second.
Correct, it's not. Well, I want to go back to the first teaser that all we got was the symbol. That symbol changed a couple of times in different logos. And the logos that I kind of have started thinking about what we might see and kind of going through that again. We've got it popped up with Miles, Spirit Spider, 90s cartoon Spider-Man, Penny Parker, Silk, Japanese Spider-Man, Secret War Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, Ben Reilly, and Spider-Man 2099. All those symbols kind of blinked in and out during that only symbol of the teaser.
Yeah, and there's obviously Ben Reilly, near and dear to my heart. Want to see him, but that 90s Spider-Man one, I would absolutely love to see the 90s Spider-Man again. That would be so awesome.
Oh yeah. So clip opens with him listening to it's not his dorm room, it is his home, stuff floating around him, and we start seeing hexagons start appearing. Oh, hexagons are back, Brent. Those can be fun.
That's right. The hex.
Yep.
It's Agatha all along.
And so we see Gwen here. The producers have said that this movie takes place a year later.
There you go. That explains the difference, because their ages, I know he told us he went through puberty in the first movie, but hey, he's still working his way through it.
There was a comic that was floating by before. It said the life tales of Spider-Man saved the multiverse. Now what? We see Gwen wearing a similar device on her wrist there, what we ended Into the Spider-Verse with, that Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, was wearing at the end of that, allowing her to hop multiverses without glitching.
I love the way he used his foot right there to grab whatever it was he was grabbing, shoving all this stuff in. Oh, my dorm room is much more adult. This is kid stuff.
We see at one point, I think it already fell off the wall during the thing, Miles and Uncle Aaron, aka the Prowler, who died and asked him to do better. We catch a lot of Japanese references. There was a Gundam mech there in the background over here. We see some what look very obviously are some Power Rangers-like figures. I'm thinking, could this hint? Are we going to get Japanese Spider-Man appearing in this show?
I mean, I wouldn't say no.
He does have a mech. He did have a mech.
He did. And I mean, you reference like the Power Ranger looking things. And we know, like, especially we know the history that Spider-Man, basically had towards influencing the Power Rangers. So bring him on. You know what? He wasn't animated, but I don't care. Animate him now. Animate him now.
And we get Spider Buggy, Spider-Mobile right here.
Yeah, you're right. I really hadn't noticed that.
So
you're right.
Gwen is opening a sketchbook. Oh, that's cute.
I miss you too. This isn't weird at all.
And so basically Gwen's recruiting Miles to go on an adventure into the multiverse. And he basically kind of says like, he's grounded. She brings up a point saying, is Spider-Man grounded?
Yeah, pretty badass response.
I did kind of chuckle at the meme as her falling out the window and it transitions to
Mm-hmm.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 with
Mm-hmm.
Gwen.
Yep. There was way too much laughter at that. I
Yep.
won't lie.
Yep. So, he decides to jump in. So get a suit and jump into the multiverse. So again, with the hexes, the hexagons.
I love that we're getting the shot of him flying through the multiverse now, since we got all the other spiders in the first movie.
And he does not have a device on his wrist. That's important. He does not have a device that Gwen has on his wrist.
And his costume looks a little bit different too.
His costume is different. It no longer has the webbing on it. So he's gotten a slight little change with his costume. So the first universe he goes into is a very different animation. And I'm glad I paused it right here. This is Hindi writing. Also, when he starts using and Spider-Man 29 starts using their webbing, thwip, there is no word for thwip in Hindi. So they are literally using the letters to spell out thwip.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So,
did not know that.
Yeah. So other key, there's going to be a picture on the billboard. Could we be getting also Spider-Man India, which is from Earth 50101?
See, now that I think is very, very possible.
Yeah.
I would even put that as probable at this point.
Yeah. So a slightly different animation, different universe. And wait for it. Wait for my man to come out of there. There he is. There's my man, Spider-Man 2099.
And you must have had the biggest smile when you
Oh
saw
my
that.
gosh. Again, I love Ben Reilly, but Miguel. Just seeing this now.
Are you trying to get the shot of his arm?
I'm trying to get a shot of it, but I don't think I'm going to get that. I'm not going to focus too much on that. On his arm, a universe comes up and it says 928, which is the possible future of Earth 616, which Miguel is from, where there is a war between the humans and mutants, where the humans won.
Yeah.
And that's his reality. So could we be going to a post-war where Spider-Man 29 is fighting a villain? Not just any villain. He is fighting against Doctor Doom in this reality. In the comics, at least. In the comics.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see that part here, because Doom is... I would be very surprised, because Doom is not a character Sony has access to. But either way, I'm just glad that Oscar Isaac is back.
Yes.
That we're going to get to see more. I mean, Spider-Verse has several MCU actors voicing characters in it. And I'm just glad that, we're going to get to see more of Spider-Man 2099, because his costume is awesome. He is such a cool Spider-Man. It's going to be so great to see it.
Yeah. I've again, I've said it on this show. Seeing him at the end of Into the Spider-Verse is like, oh my gosh, not just anything, but like this voice by Oscar Isaac. Man, it was just cool. I'm very excited to get some love for Miguel O'Hara and to people to really see what this future version of Spider-Man is. So the synopsis, you had pointed to me out, the synopsis has been finally released for the movie. It says Miles returns to for the next chapter of the Oscar-winning Spider-Verse saga, an epic adventure that will transport Brooklyn's full-time friendly neighborhood Spider-Man across the multiverse to join forces with Gwen Stacy and a new team of Spider people to face off with a villain more powerful than anything they have ever encountered before.
Okay. So,
yeah,
I won't lie. Part of me wondered if Morlun was going to be involved, but
yeah,
we'll find out soon.
We'll have to see. So, sticking with the Spider-Verse, and as this came out, Entertainment Weekly basically had an exclusive interview ready to go with Lord and Miller, who for this time are not directing; they are writing and producing this movie. I believe this movie has 2 or 3 directors. I want to say 3 directors.
I would have to look it up.
Yeah. So let me kind of pull this up and kind of look at the highlights of this, because it wasn't necessarily an article, but they kind of like tweeted some of this stuff out. They asked, what's Miles been up to since the first Spider-Verse? They said he's been trying to step into big shoes, realizing it's not easy to juggle family and growing as a spider person, and that's lonely, hiding the truth about yourself from other people you love. And I kind of get that in just this very short trailer. Like, he's kind of there. He doesn't look great, You
Sure.
know, it is a balance that he is trying to rectify. Again, he's still a kid, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oscar Isaac, Spider-Man 2099 is back for Across the Spider-Verse. What can you tell us about his take on the character? Said Oscar had one condition of taking the gig. Don't make me boring. He's made a really complex character out of Miguel O'Hara, and he's definitely not boring. And again, he's a very interesting character just on his culture alone. He is Irish and Mexican. He's half Irish, half Mexican. So it's going to be. And you saw that actually when they went to his universe, the writing is in Spanish, I believe.
Yeah, you gotta kind of hope that maybe they talk in Spanish at one point, Miguel and Miles with each other.
Oh yeah, that'd be very cool. They said Across the Spider-Verse seems to hop into different universes. Which one are you most excited to explore? He says, well, we're just getting started. In the first look, you get just a taste of what we're going for. Every dimension looks and feels radically different from the other. They all look like they were drawn by different artists. I think that is very cool. I mean, we saw that basically going from India to Miguel's universe at that point. So if that's going to be, I like that they're doing something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm co-signing for sure.
I think All in the Games got one of the Kemp Powers from Soul and One Night in Miami is involved, which is great. So he's one of the directors. Okay. And let's see what else we've got with this. The first Spider-Verse was so innovative and visually dazzling. How would you describe the visual style of Across the Spider-Verse? It's an opportunity to build on the visual foundation and push it to a bold new place. Some of the groundbreaking art techniques of the team has developed for the movie has blown us away. It's going to be an exciting experience for audiences, nothing like anyone has ever seen.
Yeah, the way the visual style of it. And I mean, even this little teaser, we see, a couple different styles that we're going to get to enjoy here soon.
So they get a question saying the upcoming Spider-Man No Way Home has also plays with the idea of multiverse. Any chance we'll see Miles in No Way Home? They said, we have seen No Way Home, and we would be very surprised if Miles shows up. But everyone is part of the Spider-Verse.
I think there's a bigger chance of seeing one or all three of these other Spider-Men, these live-action Spider-Men, appearing in one of the two Across the Spider-Verse movies. I think that has a bigger chance of happening.
They say, are there any alternative universes or characters you wanted to introduce, but they didn't make the final cut? He said, honestly, no. We're getting to do more or less of everything we've ever wanted. So that's good to hear. They're not getting kind of said, no, you can't do that. They asked, so far, what's been your most memorable moment recording with the cast? Well, it's been a very busy year with lots of different projects. And at one point, we were recording a very emotional scene with Haley Steinfeld, who's returning as Spider-Gwen, in one room, while in the next room, we were shooting a comedy music video with a booty-quaking sushi chef.
Absolutely.
We tried to get Haley to sing backup, but she declined.
Huh, wonder why.
Yep. And the last part of this said, what's been your biggest challenge working on Across the Spider-Verse? He said, honestly, everyone is so pumped and proud to be working on it. There's a tendency to want to do no harm. We try to remind ourselves that the crew, that we owe it to the audience to take risks and to be irrelevant. Excuse me. We owe it to the audience to take risks and to be irreverent. It's Spider-Man, so he's used to taking big swings.
Appreciate the pun there.
Yep. So yeah, so again, next October, we've got some more Spider-Man. Not a bad thing to have, right?
No, that's looking like we're gonna have Spider-Man 3 years in a row.
Yep, that's again, love it. So, all right, let's take our next ad break because this one's a big one. This one we weren't expecting on Sunday night. So, all right. So again, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. They can be a bit loud. So I'm going to turn that volume down, give you that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. So our buddy, Sean O'Connell, Sunday night says he's got something big to talk about and something big to kind of put out there. From his interview with Kevin Feige, he was doing in the press junket for Spider-Man No Way Home. And he basically talks about a certain devil in the kitchen.
I'm so
And
glad he asked this question.
it was just a question he could have asked so many different things at that point. And so, he's asking Kevin about it, and he says, the idea of what he asked Kevin, what he thought about Charlie Cox being able to stay in the part. And to our surprise, Kevin Feige actually acknowledges the question and answers it. And he says, and this is the way he says it also is be very interesting because it's Kevin Feige. If you were to see Daredevil in upcoming things, Charlie Cox, yes, would be the actor playing Daredevil. Where we see it, how we see it, when we see that remains to be seen.
I could not believe this. I would have, like, if I was talking to Sean before, and I would have been like, you are wasting a question because all he's going to tell you is, oh yeah, Daredevil's a great character. And it's always nice to see where things will pop up, but that's all I can say right now. Like, that's what 95 times out of 100 or more. That's his answer to that question. No, he flat out confirms Charlie Cox will be Daredevil if we see Daredevil again. Okay, so either we're never seeing Daredevil again, which we know is not going to be the case, or Charlie Cox is back. That is fantastic. That's all I need. I'm so thrilled with that news. I don't need to like see him in the project or whatever right now. I don't need to see him in a trailer right now. If he does happen to show up in Spider-Man, Charlie Cox is Daredevil.
Yeah.
The biggest smile on my face as I read that 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, all in the game. Yeah, worst kept secret in entertainment. Yeah, I mean, there have been rumors flying around all this year about it. I remember Brandon Davis on his very first episode of the Phase 1 podcast put it out there that he put it out there that he has his sources that said that he will be back in a certain film that might or may not be coming out next week. He was also very gracious at that point in the sense of giving credit where credit doesn't get into a fight. He gave Sean credit saying, thank you, thanks for confirming, what I put out there at that point. Because again, it's coming straight from the source. It's coming from Kevin. Kevin's saying if Daredevil were to appear in the MCU, it's going to be Charlie Cox.
All the games said worst kept secret in entertainment. And I remember at some point saying in the GUA chat that it's like, for this character, I need more than just scoopers. I need more than just rumors. I need some like actual confirmation. I need the actual confirmation. It's like, I got to protect my heart. I need it. Like, this character means too much to me. I need something official. And you don't get more official than Kevin Feige for this kind of thing. And unlike what we talked about last week with, the whole Amy Pascal saying there's a new Spider-Man trilogy coming where she's not technically authorized to speak to that at this point, Kevin Feige can say whatever he wants about the Marvel licensed characters. Like, he does make those decisions. So yes, Charlie Cox is Daredevil. At this point, it's up in the air about the canon. Is Netflix going to be canon? Is it going to be retconned? Is it going to be acknowledged or just kind of ignored but not contradicted? Frankly, I really don't care. This is what I wanted. I wanted Charlie Cox as Daredevil. It's like I had layers to this. I wanted the character, and then I wanted the specific actor. Give me the choice. Okay, sure, make it canon. I'm down with that. If it's a new one like what we're doing with J.K. Simmons, fine. I'm happy. No complaints over here.
Yeah, and again, it's the best confirmation we've had in the sense of he's the first one. He's the first as close of a confirmation we've gotten that he's officially now come next week. And we might get our very first official appearance of a Netflix character. Maybe. But just hearing it from Kevin, again, Kevin, like we said, doesn't acknowledge this stuff. He'll say, oh, it's maybe a possibility. We always appreciate, like, there's always something in the future. He does say something later in the week about the Netflix characters. We always want to, keep our options open when it comes to this kind of stuff. And so, which is fine. That's what he's supposed to do. But again, people are saying, why would he say this? Probably to get in front of what's about to happen next week and just kind of say, hey, I told you it could possibly happen. I just didn't tell you when, because I'm not going to ruin the surprise. And that's good. I mean, he's doing what he should be doing.
I I look forward to the inevitable press tour that Charlie Cox is a part of, or the inevitable interview that, let's say, he is in Spider-Man. That first interview that can talk freely, just so we can get those conversations of like, did you think you were going to come back when Netflix ended? What was it like when they asked you? What did they have to really hard sell you on it? Was it weird to revisit the character? Like all the I want to hear or at least read those things. I want to see what Charlie Cox has to say about coming back to the character.
Yeah. And again, if they somehow just throw out all the Netflix canon at that point, I'm okay. Again, it doesn't necessarily negate that it didn't have in the sense of like, I'll always have those shows to watch, if they negate it all, bring in some of it, refer back to it, whatever it is, I'm getting Charlie Cox back at some point in the MCU.
Yeah, and I would love to see some of the other characters and actors. I've obviously talked about Vincent D'Onofrio. I've talked about John Bernthal. Like those are my big three. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, some of the others. Yes, bring back Feige, bring back Karen. Bring back that cast. And if that extends to the other characters from the Defenders lineup, okay, great. I'm fine. I will take them all. Yes, even Ben Jones, as long as he can be a little bit more motivated to put in the work necessary for a character like Iron Fist, then I would be fine with them all. And you know what? If he wants to recast any of them, okay, I get that too. I understand. Ultimately, it is the characters first for me, and then the actors second.
Yeah. All in the game saying they're going to pick and choose from the Netflix canon, which is fine. Yeah, I'm good with that. Brock saying fully fine with them throwing it out Iron Fist.
The only thing about the Netflix canon is legally, I have not been able to find anything on like where things like obviously like Daredevil wears a devil suit and is Matt Murdock and is a lawyer. Like those are tied to the character. So that's going to go with him. Right. But like the actual storyline, like the actual stories they told on Netflix, I don't know. Like it just legally, like,
yeah.
Are they allowed to directly reference it? If they wanted to show flashback footage, could they? I mean, sure, they could cut a check to Netflix and just buy those shows or buy the rights to do that. But regardless,
they don't need to.
Yeah, they don't need to. And especially because Netflix is never taking them off of Netflix and like off the service, and they'll just get more valuable as more people see Matt Murdock, see Charlie Cox in whatever future MCU projects he appears in.
Exactly. So we'll just have to see where Mr. Murdock appears, if he appears, when he appears. So yeah, that was great at that point. It was nice hearing Kevin actually say something, and we'll see what comes next week because there's more press to be done about next week. So we'll but our last news story for at least this part of the show is we got a Marvel making a deal. Destin Daniel Cretton, who is the director of Shang-Chi, has inked an overall deal with Marvel Studios. And Deadline revealed that he has signed a multi-year contract with Marvel Studios and Hulu's Onyx Collective. He is reportedly already developing the MCU spin-off series for Disney Plus as part of the deal, which is rumored to be centered around Ji Ling at that point. However, it was later followed up by Variety saying that this Disney Plus show is a comedy, but it didn't say necessarily if it was going to be tied to Shang-Chi. It just said their sources say it's going to be more of a comedy.
Yeah, obviously it doesn't have to be Shang-Chi, but for me, first of all, like the big news is just that he's back for Shang-Chi 2.
Yep.
Same director. It's greenlit. It's official. It's happening because call it what it is. Well, the movie performed pretty well. It did not perform as well as you would like to think that, or I'm sure Disney wanted more out of this movie than what they got. And of course, we all know the reasons why that didn't happen.
Yep.
I'm just glad to see that they still made, at least in my opinion, the right creative choice. And they brought back Destin Daniel Cretton because you know how much I love that movie. That was, at least to date, my favorite movie I've seen this year. And it's not even close. And no offense, Black Widow or Eternals or anything else that I've seen and enjoyed, it's not even close. I love that movie. So getting the team back together, I'm so excited for that. I have thought ever since we saw that the 10 Rings will return right after we see Zhao Ling is, taking over the operation, I've thought that's got Disney Plus show written all over it. Comedy, though, it doesn't have comedy written all over it to me. Some funny stuff in it, but not as a comedy. However, there's one Shang-Chi thing that does make me think comedy, and maybe it's not Shang-Chi related at all. The thing that does Trevor Slattery.
Have a whole show on Trevor.
I could see something with Trevor. Do I really see six episodes, 40-minute episodes of Trevor? The Trevor and Morris show. I don't see that, but what I could see is like a series of shorts, and I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, it could be, very much could be. All in the game saying over under something similar happening to Chloe Zhao like it has for Cretton and Coogler. I am not necessarily saying I don't think this is something that Chloe wants to do.
I would not be opposed to seeing her come back.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's just be realistic. The Eternals did not get the same reaction that Shang-Chi did or that Black Panther did. Like, it just wasn't the same. I think there's room there. There's definitely room there for future movies. We know the Eternals we're going to see them again. I think there's room for some stuff with them on Disney Plus even. I do think there's room. I have a phase 1 vibe like feeling where, outside of Jon Favreau, of course, basically the phase 1 directors were one and done. Like they were one and out with the MCU. I just have that feeling, but yeah, no complaints from me if she does come back for a part 2.
Yeah. So, but again, hey, that's a lot of news. And again, stay tuned for after the end credits. We've still got one more news item that was.
Yep, one more.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about another big guy. Talk about another big guy later on. All in the game, Agents of Atlas, show with agents going after the Tang Rings organization.
Headlined by Jimmy Woo.
Yeah.
So,
but again, we'll have to see what happens with this. I'm just glad, again, he's helming Shang-Chi Chu, and he's developing more stuff for Disney Plus. So great stuff. All right. So let us head from the news to, do you want to do our rankings first before we get into your Fact or Fictions?
Yeah, let's do the rankings first.
Okay. So as we previewed last week, Brent and I, in anticipation of No Way Home, we were going to give you our rankings of what we deem the Spider-Man theatrical movies, which will include Into the Spider-Verse and the Venom movies.
Yep. And I have, within the last few months, I have seen all of these. Like rewatched every single one on this list. So as I was doing it, it's like, well, it's a good time to freshen up the rankings, if you will. And I kind of surprised myself after watching everything in such close quarters where a couple movies fell on the list.
All right. So you want to go bottom to one?
I mean, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah,
and I'm sure we have some similarities in there, but I think we'll have some differences too. That'll be where the fun's at.
Yeah, that will be. So what is your, and again, even if it's at the bottom, doesn't mean we hate it. It just means that it's just not our favorite.
Well, at the bottom, number 10 for me is the movie that I thoroughly did not enjoy when I first saw it, but I've softened on it over time and have grown to at least be able to get some enjoyment out of it, and that would be the first Venom movie.
Oh, okay. All right. Mine is the sequel, Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Okay.
So it just, as I said during the review, it just seemed very, very quick. Not a lot of, I expected a little bit more out of it. It just seemed very rushed. So
sure. My number 9 is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I enjoyed it quite a bit more than the first one. I've still got it lower than the rest of the Spider-Man movies, but I mean, there's a knock against it. There's no Spider-Man in it, but especially after Brock, helped me look at it a different way by comparing it to like the Fast and Furious, where it's absurd, it's ridiculous. Let's be honest, it's dumb, but I love it anyway. #family.
Yeah, I was about to say
that really did help. That really did help me out there. And side note, the other day I told a coworker who absolutely hates those movies that it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, a win's a win. And he didn't know what it was from. So I said, just look it up. And I left and went home for the day. And he did look it up and he was not happy with me.
I bet. Mine is The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
So it's there's a lot of different parts I do like at that movie. It just, Jamie Foxx is a great actor. I'm looking forward to him coming back. That character fell victim to just bad writing.
Sure.
Just not great stuff. I still enjoy Andrew Garfield as his role at that point. That movie had a lot of just a lot of pacing issues. I still enjoy watching it, but the pacing is just hard for me to kind of look past.
Well, my number 8 is Spider-Man 3. And I will tell you, I do not think this movie is as bad as its reputation. Is there some ridiculous stuff in there? Of course there is, but I don't think it's as bad as its reputation. And that was the scene with basically where the new Goblin, Harry Osborn, whatever you call him, where Harry's super powered up and Spider-Man team up is the first like powered team up and the only powered team up we got from Tobey Maguire, at least for another week. And it was really cool to see him in that kind of situation. And no, like the Venom effects they're not as good as the Venom movie is. No, he doesn't look as good. But I don't think they look as bad when you consider the time. And more importantly, like a lot of the characters' motivations, they actually kind of were on. Like they really were pretty comic accurate with that origin. No, it's not the best Spider-Man movie, but I think it's better than its rep.
Well, we are lock and step on that one. Mine is also Spider-Man 3. I was very excited to see Venom on the screen for the very first time.
Yes.
And I thought how they did it very much page to screen at that point. I thought, Topher Grace, okay, not necessarily who I'd pick as an Eddie Brock, but he was serviceable for it. Another movie where it's not too many villains. It's just knowing what I found out later behind the scenes and Sam Raimi and things like that. This movie lost what the first two movies had, and that was his passion. He got dictated a lot to by the studios about he didn't want Venom for this. Absolutely not. He's gone on record that was not his choice. That was a studio mandate. And I cannot wait to read Sean's book when he does talk about Spider-Man, when he goes into Spider-Man 3, because what Sam wanted to follow up with his eventual Spider-Man 4 with Vulture, that he was very excited about that. And the fact that we don't get to see that, but yeah, Spider-Man 3. So what's next up?
Next up for me, this would be my number 7, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
Again, it's better than its reputation. There's the problems that you talked about with Electro. They're there. I actually don't mind his blue look, and I think the effects in this movie, there's some really cool stuff. There's some great just Spider-Man action, like when he's jumping up the stairs and he's keeping people from touching the railing. Just some beautiful shots in it. But for me, it really comes down to that chemistry with Emma Stone, with this Gwen Stacy. Absolutely heartbreaking when she dies. It's coming, right? She's fighting Green Goblin. She goes flying down. Of course, she's not going to make it, but it's still just like that is really, really well done. And honestly, I'm a little surprised they did it just because how strong the connection with those two actors was at the time. I'm like, man, you could have had that for a third movie. Of course, we know they didn't make the third movie, but again, better than its reputation, in my opinion.
Yeah. All in the Game says, I always encourage people to watch the very entertaining YouTube video from Double Toasted on why Spider-Man 3 is better than 2. Hey, I got some homework to do. I will definitely look into that. My next one is the first Venom. Kind of like you, that movie, as I've seen it a few other times, it's gone up from where I originally had it. And if I were to make these rankings when I first saw it, not a perfect movie, but I got a better Venom than I did in Spider-Man 3. And so that's why it just edges out Spider-Man 3, just goes above it there.
All right. Well, you're not going to like this next one.
Okay.
Here we go.
It's your list. I don't have to like it.
Here we go. You're not going to. Spider-Man 2 is my number 6. And
there's your hot take. You got your hot take.
That is not the traditional take. And I just have a few issues with the movie. I think Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus is fantastic. I just don't love that it's effectively the arms that made him evil. But even more for that, I'm not a big fan of the story where the superhero loses their powers and it's all in their head. And that's pretty much what it boiled down to. It's all in his head.
True.
And I've heard people say, well, he got sad, so he lost his powers. I'm like, all right, well, I won't quite go to that level. But at the same time, there is some fantastic stuff. That train scene, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it's absolutely incredible. The action in this is absolutely incredible. And there's some B-level horror stuff, like when they're trying to cut off Octopus's arms, that just does not work for me. It's my biggest concern about Raimi with Doctor Strange, but we'll find out either way. Spider-Man 2 is my number 6.
All right. Well, mine, some might consider a hot take at that point. Mine is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Okay.
So when you come off as again, it's Spider-Man Homecoming is going to be much is higher in the rankings, but I really like the dynamics between Peter and Mysterio. Really enjoyed that. I thought that was very, very strong. There was just way too much of Peter. I know that was the whole theme of like Peter trying to measure up to what Tony left him. It just seemed a lot overkill with it. And I did say when you and I did our favorite non-action MCU things, that the conversation he has with Happy, I love that scene. Absolutely love that scene. But I just didn't think, like, my biggest complaint is that they're so heavy-handed with he's got to measure up to be Tony. He's got to measure up to be Tony. That's one of my biggest complaints.
All right. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, the next Iron Man, right? At least that's what they think he is. Okay, so next up on my list, number 5 is Spider-Man 1, the first Tobey Maguire movie.
All right.
I adore the Green Goblin performance in this movie. His costume's still terrible, but I'm still glad we're seeing that costume. That's the costume we should be seeing, at least briefly. And I'm glad we are, but it's a horrible costume. But man, that movie was just incredible. And just like overall, just seeing it that whole time, like that's such an event, it became cool to actually acknowledge comic book movies and stuff.
Yes.
It was Spider-Man that did that. And I love that it was Spider-Man that did that. And I could not have been happier sitting down and watching that movie that first time.
Yeah, no, can't blame you on that. Mine is The Amazing Spider-Man. Introducing Andrew Garfield to becoming Spider-Man. I still remember that at Comic-Con where he dressed up in the homemade Spider-Man and that speech he gave. That sold me on him. I said, that guy's got the passion. I'm willing to give him a chance at this point. He does it is a different interpretation of Peter Parker and how he portrays Peter. But man, you cannot deny that chemistry between him and Gwen Stacy at all. I mean, that was all over the place. Lizard being the villain, I liked it. It was just okay. And I think that the whole dynamic between both him and Kirk Connors was there. A whole movie on Lizard just wasn't a great thing for me. So,
well, Amazing Spider-Man is my number 4. That's next on my list. And I have put Amazing Spider-Man above the entire Tobey trilogy. I know that's blasphemy. I'm sorry.
Katie will agree with you.
Well, then that's weird because we don't normally agree on these kind of hot takes, but that makes it fun. I just really, really like Andrew Garfield's performance. And I just think it's such a good, solid movie all the way through. The Lizard is not my favorite Spider-Man villain, but I thought they did a really good job with him. And I like the look of him overall. Yeah, there's a couple shots here and there, but they did a really good job with the overall look of him and the overall story. It worked so well for me. More of that chemistry that I talked about with Amazing Spider-Man 2 that you just mentioned between him and Gwen. But for me, where Amazing Spider-Man 2, definitely not all the pieces came together. They were there for this first one. And I loved it. I mean, it came out in 2012. There were rumors you were going to see Avengers Tower in the background of it. Obviously that didn't happen, but I really, really like this one.
Special shout out. Sally Field as Aunt May, Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Great. I am a big Martin Sheen fan. I'm a huge West Wing fan, but seeing him as Uncle Ben is, this is perfect too. So perfect.
He is a fantastic Uncle Ben, and I mean, unfortunately, he got to go. But it was awesome to see him for that bit that we had him.
Yep. My number 4 is Spider-Man Homecoming.
All right.
Getting to see, seeing Tom Holland in Civil War, but getting a whole kind of Spider-Man and the idea of this mentorship that he has with Tony. Even though I said they were overhanded with, is he going to be the next Iron Man? Is successing? I really enjoy the dynamics between what Tony had to get through his head about, especially when he says, if you think that you can't be anything without the suit, then you don't deserve it in the first place. That was a
Yep.
great message to send through to Peter at that point to prove, like, who are you really? Are you the
Yeah.
man or are you the suit? And a lot of great. I love the kind of, it worked getting him back into that high school. I mean, Tom Holland looked like that high school student, kind of nerdy, geeky, kind of the outsider looking in. It was a lot of fun, that movie. I mean, I enjoy all these movies, but yeah, Homecoming, really love it.
My number 3 would be Spider-Man Far From Home, and I will tell you, with my number 2, like, they're so close, I could flip-flop them, which one did I watch last? But I really enjoyed Far From Home. Mysterio is not a character that I'm typically drawn to. Like, when I'm thinking about Mysterio, I pretty much think about, like, oh, I liked him in the 90s animated. Fair enough. I can't really think of too many Spider-Man comics I've been that into him, though. There's that Daredevil, Guardian Devil run where he's a part of, and he's really good there. Just not a character that I like him in group settings usually. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal did a great job as Mysterio. I love the look they did for him. That dream hallucination sequence and everything that has was incredible. The way they did, fine, the Peter Tingle, it's a dumb name, but whatever. The way they did the Spider Sense, I love the look of that. And so Spider-Man Far From Home is number 3.
Yeah, All in the Game says, yeah, not a fanboy of the Toby Raimi trilogy, too, like most are. Don't like the Raimi schlock kitsch not a fan of the high schoolers who look like old enough to be going through a midlife crisis.
yeah. I mean, I had seen 90210 before. I was used to that kind of concept by that time.
Yeah. My number 3 is, maybe we're obviously in, difference of opinion on this one.
Sure.
Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, that, and again, call it nostalgia, call it, this was, the same time around, obviously X-Men came out first, but then we get Spider-Man. I had not seen something like this before. And it was, like you said, it made it be cool to talk about comics in a normal setting and not be looked at as a geek or made fun of at that point. It was just cool to be it. And what they did on the screen, the costume, Green Goblin, yeah, say what you want about the the Power Ranger suit, but still it grew on me like a fungus.
I would argue nobody has seen something like that for a Spider-Man movie. Like, nobody had seen that before. That's why it was such a big deal.
So the original Spider-Man, my number 3.
All right, well, my number 2 is Spider-Man Homecoming. I just like that opening Marvel fanfare, that Marvel Studios logo, my favorite character and my favorite franchise. Like, that was awesome. Just massive smile. Love seeing that there. And just, it was such a good Spider-Man movie. And one thing that I felt like we really didn't get, at least in my opinion, not enough of in either Toby or Andrew incarnations, was the high school Spider-Man. It's like by the time he becomes Spider-Man, he's basically graduating high school. And I like that we actually saw him dealing with some high school stuff. If they do another trilogy, yes, but I'm ready. Show me the college age time, whether or not he actually goes to college. But it was cool to actually have a movie with Spider-Man in high school, a whole movie all the way front to back. Of course, the Vulture is just phenomenal. The whole scene where Peter finds out that Liz's dad is the Vulture,
yes,
and everything there.
Scene.
The way they had him lift the rubble off of him, recreating that's such an iconic moment. And it's like, for everyone who is upset about Iron Boy Jr., I'm like, do you forget that he saved the day? And just with his web shooters that he built and in his homemade costume that is totally a color swapped version of the Scarlet Spider costume, he did it on his own. Like, yes, Iron Man showed up in the movie at the midpoint, but he wasn't there for the final battle. That was all Spider-Man. And that movie for me is a happy movie. When if I'm bummed out, I could just watch that movie and it'll just help, bring me out of it.
Yeah. My number 2 is Spider-Man 2. I mean, you see it back here. Every show we do, that's the poster. That's one of the posters from Spider-Man 2, where he's looking over the edge, and it says choice. And yeah, again, he gets sad. He is in his own head about it. But what I really enjoy about the movie is the struggles of him. Okay, now he's Spider-Man. How does he balance his life? And that movie really focuses on the Parker luck, meaning no luck. Even the song by Train, everyone seems to that they do for the movie, like everyone seems to be getting theirs. Why can't I get mine? That is Peter Parker. That is the definition of Peter Parker. He always feels like, and that's the whole thing. Like, can he get with Mary Jane? No, he's so afraid of putting her in harm's way. I love Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. I'm so excited to see him next week back in that suit. That movie means a lot to me in so many ways. And it was my number one for many years. Until what I guess is both of our number ones came along.
Yeah, we both have the same one. Before we say, just take a moment to think of how cool it is that, all jokes aside, Toby or Andrew in the movie or not, whatever, those movies are now canon to the multiverse of the MCU. And that is awesome. I love that. I love that is the case. But yes, obviously number one is Into the Spider-Verse. It's one of like two Marvel movies I've gotten to see early at an advanced screening, at one of those things where you just show up and you have to be one of the first whatever people with the ticket in your hand to get in. And I left that, I'm like 5 minutes in, I'm like, this is going to be good. And by the end of it, I'm like, this is such a special love letter to the character. And it might be the most rewatchable of them all. And it is. So like, if I'm, removing like as much of my MCU biases as I can, because obviously I'm aware of those, it's just a movie. And I'm somebody who is not drawn to animation that much, but so I love that movie. And it's great because my son loves it too. And randomly, it'll just be the two of us for whatever reason on a weekend morning. And it's like, let's watch some Spider-Man. No.
Yep. Yeah, I can't wait to John and Alan get to it, because they're into the Spider-Man Friends show right now, and they love it. That's everything. Can we watch Spidey now? And much to my shudder at that point, I like Spin. I like Spin too. Stop calling him Spin.
Yes. Yeah. The whole Spin thing on Spidey and his Amazing Friends is ridiculous, but whatever.
But anyways, in the Spider-Verse, seeing that movie for an early showing, thank you, Sony PlayStation, for that free ticket. Seeing even just some of those multiversal characters on the same screen was just a moment of saying, I don't care if it's animation. I'm getting to see this on the big screen. The ideas and the message of anyone can wear the mask.
Yes.
And getting Miles his moment, of which means so much to so many people at that point, but seeing Miles get his moment in the sun and continuing brings my heart so much joy. I can't wait to show it to my kids. And it's just, there's a reason that took over as my number one. All in Game's got a question though. Should the college Spidey movies use real New York College or NYU, Columbia University, as opposed to Empire State University?
My real answer is I really don't care, but I guess given the choice, it makes no difference to the story. There's no legal reasons why they could or could not use them. I would say go with Empire State, just because that's what it was in the comics. In reality, I genuinely couldn't care less.
Yeah, Empire State. That way they don't have to pay licensing rights.
Yeah.
So they'll probably go that right. But all right, so we're going to take our last ad break, and before we get Fact or Fiction Comic Book Club and close out the show. So again, listeners, use ads keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. Give you that 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. So Brent, it is your turn this week. This will be our last Fact or Fiction for 2 weeks.
All right. Well, we're going to start with a Hawkeye one.
All right.
Hawkeye will have a season 2, and Jeremy Renner will be in it.
I'll say fact, because I don't think Clint is going to die in this one. That would just be the biggest slap in the face for everything that he's working towards. How much he's in the show, I say he will be recurring, but not necessarily a permanent member. He'll be kind of a guest one as her mentor that Kate will go to every once in a while. He'll become basically not comparison, but like how Carl Lumley was Isaiah Bradley, those couple of episodes. That's how many we'll see probably for Clint.
I'm going to go fact as well. I just feel like if this was truly Jeremy Renner's like last go ahead as the character, I think we would already know it. Kind of like we did about Scarlett Johansson before the Black Widow movie. I think we would know it, but I agree it's basically going to be the Kate Bishop show, and he'll just show up a couple times. I do think that'll be the case.
First episode, maybe towards the end of the season when she's down on her luck and she needs to pick me up.
Be like episodes like 1, 4, and at the tail end of 6 after the main story's done.
Yep.
Write that down. You heard it here first.
Yep.
All right. So my next one, and this is just to forget everything I've ever said about speculation and expectation. This is just to set us up for as much failure as possible, just to be crushed in our souls.
All right.
I mean, really, quite literally, by this time next week, we will have seen both Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock in the MCU. Proper. None of these asterisks in a Marvel Studios production.
And this is going knowledge that Brent and I have not seen or know any of whatever leaked photos are out there at all. Whatever has been leaked, we have stayed clear of them. I'm going to go fact, especially now that Kevin has said what he said, when he said it, how he said it.
Yeah, that made me feel a lot better about this one because I've had this one written down for a little while. And yes, I agree. I think it's a fact at this point. I think, like All in the Game was saying, it's the worst kept secret, but until it's official, it's not official.
There might be some tears in that movie for me. I'm not going to lie.
I will. Yeah. No judgment there. No judgment there. Okay. Final one. And I had to modify this when the long range projections came out, or not even that long range, but the first box office projections came out. But all right. No Way Home's domestic opening weekend box office will be in the top 5 of the MCU. And just to give you a little context, Avengers Age of Ultron is number 5 at 191 million.
So that's
domestic opening.
Domestic opening. Okay. I will say fact. This movie, I would love to know what the final numbers for pre-sales are, because if anything has been seen, I mean, this is easily going to be the biggest movie of this year. It's going to take down who's got the number 1 opening right now
of this year? Yeah. Venom with 90 million.
Okay. Yeah. It's gonna
domestically anyway.
Domestically. Yeah. It's going to blow that out of the water. Yeah. So
I could, Spider-Man always beats Venom.
Yeah. So it's got to be how much for Ultron?
So Ultron was 191.2 million.
Okay. I will say yes. I will say fact. I will go on the build up for this movie. The marketing for this movie is going to be something special for this year to close out this year.
So I was originally going to do the same question, but say top 10, which Iron Man 2 is actually number 10 for the record.
Okay.
But then those projections of 190 to 200 came out. I'm like, okay, I got to change it. I'm going to go fact as well. I thought about saying it'll be top 4, which would top Black Panther at 202 million, but then I didn't know how I would answer it. I was like, I don't know which way I would go. That's a horrible line, or it's a brilliant line because I don't know if the over the under is better. So I will say fact because I, cheated for myself and gave it to the top 5. So I do believe Avengers Age of Ultron's time is over. It is going to be, Spider-Man's going to be up there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be good, but So I think that we will, this is the last Factor of Fictions, and once we get back to our normal episode after No Way Home, we'll go back to posting these and everything. We appreciate everyone kind of sticking with us by our limiting what we're posting out there to not help the trolls out,
especially this week.
Yes, oof, boy. So all right. We've got to let's head to Comic Book Club and issues 13 and 14.
So I was a little thrown off on these because it's out of order. And I remembered you telling me that some of them are out of order. I was like, wait a minute, didn't Kate just take the dog and take off? Mm-hmm. And And again, I must have read this whole series and just not remembered, because I'm like, nope, I've definitely read this and I definitely read the next one. So either I fell off at the very end or I must have just read the whole thing. But once I remembered you saying it's not told linear, I'm like, okay, fine, I can go with it. Sad issue.
Yeah.
But I love that he went to tell Grills' father himself
Mhm.
that he wanted to be there for him.
This is a very kind of introspective kind of Clint understanding that like he's a pretty down on his out kind of guy right now. You know, Kate's left him. Grills has been killed. You know, Kate and him basically aren't getting along at all. He feels like he's just letting everyone down. He's getting a call from his brother. Brother shows up, and it's probably the best thing that's happened to him right now. You know, and like I said, I didn't even know about what's his first name? Barney. Yeah, Barney.
Yeah, I don't remember him outside of this.
Yeah.
I don't remember him.
But it's just they both, you know, yeah, okay, Clint's actually got a place. He's actually has some money at that point while Barney's really down on his luck, but they both basically look like you both are in some pretty similar situations.
Yeah, the Barton boys definitely they're both struggling. Maybe not the same way, but they're definitely struggling.
Yeah. I did get more chuckles out of when he is with the with Black Widow, Spider-Woman, and Mockingbird.
That is a bit that does not get old. Not one bit.
Nope. You know, he may be the ladies' man, but he definitely doesn't know how to keep them. So, but yeah, so that's that one. But then we kind of flash back to go where we thought we were going to be heading to. This is Kate.
Yeah. This issue is hilarious. I love
yeah, we go from really depressing to
it is. And I read them back to back, and I was like, well, that's quite the difference here. Maybe if I had known, but this like just going after the flower the whole time, she just wants to get this flower. She wants to figure this out. She's trying to figure it out on her own. Excuse me, can I use your printer? I don't even have a printer. So good.
Yeah, and the fact that she says, "Oh, I'm kind of an Avenger, you know, I'm Avengers light at that point," but
Yeah.
you know, but she's just saying, "Okay, I'm going to be a private detective," and already that cop is just like, "Oh God, you're going to be the biggest pain in my butt at that point."
Oh, and what was the name of that cop? Is that the same name as the detective in the Hawkeye TV show?
Let me see. Detective Caudell.
Yeah, I think that is the same name.
Okay.
And I thought we were going to see him again this week because he was in the previously on.
Yep.
But he didn't. But the name stuck out to me this week because I just read this the other night. I think that's the same name. Obviously, different interpretation, doing different things with them. But
yeah, it's just seeing Kate trying to be this smooth private detective / undercover superhero. There's just something very likable about how Kate is written, and that she's trying to do the right thing to help these people, these two guys who are getting married, get their orchids at that point. And apparently, like this guy that could be a figment of her imagination in the convenience store.
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
But the fact that Ward is not who he necessarily says is basically finding Kate for Madame Mask.
Yeah, Madame Mask is like, oh yeah, because she's wow. Well, we'll get there about who Madame Mask ends up being tied to, but I you gotta wonder if we're gonna see Madame Mask in the next 2 weeks, or maybe in a potential season 2.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I'm looking forward to these issues that we get Kate focused at that point. So I think that's something that this series really shines about, bringing forward Kate and who she is. So, but all right, so next week we will be reading issues 15 and 16. That will drop again. We'll record on Wednesday and drop it on Friday morning. So, this was a long one, but a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there were several news topics that could have been like the lead story.
Yep, very much so. But all right, so listeners, so thank you for joining us for another episode of Marvel Alliance, Volume 83. So, man, again, 1 week, Brent, 1 week.
1 week.
Yeah.
That's one more week, right?
Yes. If people are going to be singing that, it was the Bare Naked Ladies 1 week.
Yeah. Haven't thought about that song in a long time, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean, you're right.
I'm not going to bother singing. I was tempted, but no, I'm not doing that. No one's going to get that.
They're
recording.
hilarious live,
Yes.
by the way.
Oh, good to know. But all right, so we want to make sure to plug our sponsor again, organicpricebooks.com. Again, use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. Again, MarvelGUA at checkout. Thank you again for being our official sponsor. Brent, tell the people how they can follow you and plug your show.
Sure. I'm Britac Prime on Twitter, on TikTok, on Fans Without Borders. We will be reviewing Spider-Man, and I will actually say I've been asked to join the guys at Beer with Geeks for an episode on Spider-Man No Way Home as well. So that'll be recording. It's the 21st. I don't know, it's later. I'd have to look at my calendar, but it'll be the last one. So lots of Spider-Man talk coming from me in the next few weeks. Yes,
definitely. Don't forget that. Yes, you two on the game. Stay safe. Make sure to listen to our end credits. We're not done yet. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga. You can follow the show at Marvel A Podcast. Again, want to plug, I was on I Love That Movie this week looking at Skyfall, so make sure to check out Lisa's podcast at that point. And else, my screen just froze up at that point. That's no good. All right. So make sure to check that out. Again, my show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. You can email the show at Marvel Alliance Podcast at gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to email, tweet, provide feedback, ask questions, continue to rate and review Marvel Alliance solo feed and our GUA feed on Apple Podcasts, whichever platform of choice may be. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for joining me joining us all in the chat. Thank you all for listening. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, Brent. We had to kick a news item.
Snell's probably cursing our names right now.
Cursing our names, but we didn't forget it at that point. We just needed to move it somewhere. And unfortunately, it's here, but we didn't forget. We just felt it. Other news was more priority. So this basically came into two parts. Ant-Man 3 is bringing Modak to the MCU in a big way. And this was first an exclusive posted by The Direct. Their sources say Modak will be introduced to the MCU in a major role in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Modak's rumored presence in the sequel has yet to be confirmed by Marvel Studios. Although they said Jim Carrey was previously rumored to take on the villain role, The Direct can confirm the actor is not playing Modak. But then I think either the next day, Geeks Worldwide reports that they have learned that, in fact, it is not Jim Carrey. It is not Bill Murray. It is Corey Stoll will be playing Modak in the Ant-Man threequel. Corey Stoll in Ant-Man, the original Ant-Man, played Yellow Jacket.
Mm-hmm.
So
this will be very different.
This is going to be a little bit of quantum action, multiversal action. We're going to get maybe an alternate view of our of Corey Stoll's character, and I think, completely honest, he's an amazing actor. He did not have much to gain from that part. He didn't have much to chew on at all.
They did not give him much to do. He was fine. He was serviceable. I really enjoyed the first Ant-Man movie, but it is lower in my MCU rankings, and one of those reasons is just the villain is just okay. But I really like this idea of him coming back.
Yeah.
And coming back and being basically turning into the MCU Modak. To me, the big thing is how's he going to look? What is that going to appear? And there's been that I'm forgetting. Did they wrap principal photography? They're definitely in it. I don't remember.
They're in the middle of it.
No, they did wrap it because it wrapped around the same time that something else Forever Far Away wrapped. And regardless, it was the Marvels was the other thing, but regardless, they could have, if this was all on sets like the Volume or sound stages, they could have kept it under wraps that this was happening to a point, and there's been no set photos or anything like that. But if Modak was never truly outside, then there wouldn't be set photos. I'm really, really curious what this what the look of this character is going to be. Because to me, like I know Snell thinks and has said like who gets cast as him is like the single most important thing for this character. I think it's his look. I think if his look works, people will forgive a less than stellar acting performance. But it could have the best actor in the world, but if they don't get this look right, that's where I think the biggest problem was.
Yeah, the last time we saw him, he had been shrunk down and sent to what was the quantum zone in the quantum realm. So, meaning he's not only alive, but will have access to a universe of possibilities. Now, in the comics, Modak is a guy named Tarleton, who, for those that do know who Modak stands for, Modak is mechanized organism designed only for killing. Modak for short. Freakish light form, basically huge head and a little arms, little legs at that point. Genius level intellect. And so originally Modak had been previously reported in one of the scripts that Paul Rudd had written. So this character has survived, and we already know Kang is going to be the major villain of this. So the question is, will Modak be a rival for Kang, or will be he and Kang working together?
If anything, I would think it would be him being a patsy to Kang more than working together. But yeah, there were reports a long time ago of Modak being involved in this, and then there was reports of I think of Modak being in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show before it got squashed.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to go back to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Modak, he's an interesting character, so we'll see what he looks like. But man, this is not going to be an easy one for Feige and his team.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how we get to see this probably very far out there character, very far out villain, especially after watching the full season of Modak on Hulu.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. So it's going to be very interesting at that point, and we'll have to wait and see. But all right, everyone, we got 2 episodes coming at you next week. Stay safe. For those of you getting to see Spider-Man, enjoy it. We've waited a long time. Stay safe out there. Bye-bye.